All right, so welcome to our webinar tonight, which is called From Mountains to Masterpieces, Hiking and Sketching in the Colorado Rockies. The name of the trip that this is about is Hiking and Sketching in the Colorado Rockies. So if you're interested in signing up after this, that's how you'll be able to find it. My name is Mel, and I'm a program manager at AGC. I've been here for a little bit over a year now, and this is one of the trips that I help manage. So the program managers are the people in the office who put together the logistics and reservations and prepare the guides and send you all of your paperwork and that sort of thing. So if you're on this trip or thinking of joining this trip, you'll get a bunch of emails from me as it gets closer. I'm going to flip over to the agenda for today. So I started off with a little bit of housekeeping, so we'll ask you to stay muted throughout the presentation. If you do want to turn off your screen, you can do that too. And the way that you do that is there's a little picture that looks like a camera down at the bottom of the screen, and you can click on that and that'll turn your screen on and off. But either's fine with us. And if you have any questions that come up during the presentation, you can put those in the chat box. So that is a little box, a little icon down in the bottom right of your screen that looks like a speech bubble. So if you click on that, it'll bring up what's called the chat box, and you'll be able to type your question in. Laurel is also somebody here from the office today, and she'll be keeping an eye on all of those questions, and she'll help us at the end to make sure we don't miss any. But we'll also open it back up at the end for you all to turn your microphones back on and just ask questions as well. So back to this trip. I love this trip. I think I have all of the AGC arts related trips at this point in my roster, which I am really happy about. And I also live in Colorado, so it's nice to manage this trip because I've been there. The other two women who are going to be helping with our webinar tonight are Brenda Porter and Claire Lucas, and they will be the guides on this trip. They've also guided it previously and helped put it all together. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So Brenda, why don't you start, and then you can pass it over to Claire.
Yeah, so I'm Brenda, and I live in Golden, Colorado, and I've been guiding with Adventures in Good Company for over 20 years now. So it's one of my favorite things to do is travel around the world, and especially in Colorado where I live. So yeah. Oh, and so I am an avid sketcher, and I don't have any formal art training, but I always have a little watercolor palette and a notebook with me, and I take it pretty much wherever I go.
Okay, my name is Claire Lucas, and I live in Easton, Pennsylvania. This is my 9th year of guiding with Adventures in Good Company. I'm a retired art educator, and I have my degree, my bachelor's degree in drawing. And I've spent quite a few years painting and working with botanical illustration that I've really loved. And when I first met Brenda guiding, she was on one of the very first trips I was on. We knew that we had something in common, and it was hiking and art. And so we said, why don't we put together a trip that combines the two? And we did, and here we are. So this is our 3rd go around or so, and I'm really excited about it. Colorado is an amazing place, and I'm excited to go there again.
Great, thanks. So just a quick overview of our plan for tonight. We'll do a quick introduction into Rocky Mountain National Park, where this trip takes place, and then more specifically the lodging for the trip and what you'll be eating on the trip, and then the activities themselves. So an overview of the different hikes that we're going to be doing, and a little bit more of a dive into the sketching and painting and what that will look like. And then Brenda will lead a sketch along that you can either just watch or you can participate in. And then after that, we'll do a little wrap up. So we'll talk about what other arts trips are available at AGC and some time for Q&A. And we'll try, the whole thing should be maybe 40 minutes, 45 minutes, something like that. All right. So Rocky Mountain National Park is where this trip will take place. And I chose this map. I know it's a really simplified map, but it just shows a few kind of key pieces about the park. So the park is about 415 square miles, And if you picture Colorado, it's a big rectangle, and the park is right in the middle on the north side of the state. And there's two entrances to the park. There's the west entrance, which is Grand Lake on this map. And then the east entrance is Estes Park. And both of those are about 2 hours from the airport. So you'll fly into DIA for this trip. You'll spend one night in Denver to help with acclimatization. And then you'll drive to Grand Lake. So this trip will start and take place on the west side of the park. And the park itself is really neat. It has all kinds of different mountain ecosystems. So wildflower meadows, a lot of waterfalls, a lot of really high peaks, snow, sun, alpine lakes, a little bit of everything. It's really beautiful. And so Estes Park, the east entrance, is where our Hiking Colorado trip takes place. So if you want to explore it even more after this trip, we've got more options. This brown part of the map is where the Continental Divide is. So the park is split almost right up the middle by the Continental Divide. And what that means is that if rain were to fall right on the top of the mountain or snow and it melts, the snow that melts down the east side of the park will go eventually out to the Atlantic and the East Coast. And if it melts on the west side of the park, it'll go out to the Pacific eventually. So it goes into different watersheds, and it's split right up the middle there. And then this white line is Trail Ridge Road. So that's a road that runs through the park, and it's only open in the summer. I don't think it's open yet this year. You can kind of see a little bit in these pictures, but this is one of our groups a few years ago up at the top of the Continental Divide. And you can see the snows up over their heads in August, I'm assuming. So they do plow it and they get it open somehow every summer, but I'm sure it's probably not open yet. So it's a little bit about the park. And we stay right in the town of Grand Lake. And before we get too much into where we stay, Brenda or Claire, do you have anything more to add about the park itself?
Yeah, I can add that one of the great things about being on the west side is it's not as crowded. And so we'll have more of the trails to ourselves. You know, there'll still be some people, but it's definitely not as crowded as the other side. And we have very short driving distances. Several of the hikes we can hike right from our lodging. And the other hikes are like, I mean, the longest hike is 30 minutes. I mean, drive to the trailhead is like 30 minutes, 45 minutes. So it's really nice that we're really spending all the time on our trip being outside and out in nature.
And one thing that might come up if you look up the park at all is that there's been quite a few wildfires in the past few years, one of which was quite close to Grand Lake. I think it was 2 summers ago. But all the trails that we're using are open again, and the park maintains them and makes sure they're safe to be hiking on. And we'll make sure we might go through the burn area once or twice, but we'll also be on plenty of trails where the fire didn't come. So you'll get to see a little bit about what that landscape looks like, because it is just a part of Colorado now. All right, so getting more specifically into the lodging for this trip, we stay at a place called Shadow Cliff, which is a nonprofit retreat center. And Shadow Cliff was really founded as a place to just revive yourself and escape from the busy world that we all live in today. And so it's a sanctuary. It holds space for individual and collective transformation. And it doesn't have any kind of religious affiliation, just really truly wanting to be a place where people can get outside and enjoy nature and have some peace, which is a great place to be staying. And it says in here, the lodging's peacefully rustic, reminiscent of summer camp. So I think summer camp, but nicer, summer camp for grownups. And on this trip, there are bunk beds, but we will not be staying in top bunk, so you don't need to worry about that. And the lodging itself has a mix of private rooms, shared rooms, a group lounge area, a kitchen, and a dining room. So we have a whole lodge called the Cliffside Lodge to ourselves on this trip, which is really nice. And there is still at least one single supplement available. So if you're somebody who really likes having your own room, that could still be an option on this trip. And then dining, we will, Shadow Cliff will be providing the meals for breakfast and dinner. So they'll be doing most of the cooking for that. And then we'll pack our own lunches each day. So we'll buy groceries and bring them up with us before you get there to pack our lunches each day. And then we'll go out into town on the last night to go out to dinner as a little celebration. All right, Claire, do you have anything to add about Shadow Cliff?
Well, I will say the feel of it being like a summer camp is spot on. And when I was leaving, you feel such a strong community with the volunteers and the people that are there. And, you know, when you go to summer camp, at least when you're a kid, when you go to summer camp, you can't wait to go back. You can't wait till the next year. It's like this thing you think about all year. And when I was leaving there, I was convinced my husband and I were going to go back there and volunteer for a week. I mean, that was really on my radar. And that's the really cool thing about Shadow Cliff, because people come back. They come back, they come back, they come back, and they have such a strong group of volunteers that they have over 100 that show up by the end of May to get the facility and all the buildings and everything ready to go. And it really is. It's really a special place. I love that it has, in the building that we're in, it has an attic on the top. And now they've added some new things since we've been there. There's a fireplace up there. There's a piano. But it's a great place for us to do our classes in the evening. Or people can go up there and paint or draw whenever they feel like it. They can have that quiet time to themselves. It's just a big open place. You step out and you've got a beautiful view of Grand Lake. The mountains, the Rocky Mountains are right there. I mean, if you just look at the slide and it's just beautiful.
All right, thank you. Brenda, do you have anything you want to add?
Nope, I think you had there's also trails throughout Shadow Cliff itself, so you can go on little kind of nature trails, right? You know, if you have an extra 10 minutes or something.
Great, thanks. Oh, I just put a few slides for pictures in here. So this slide is just focusing on the art, so you can see a little bit of some of the beautiful artwork that different participants have done on the trip. And then this slide just has a few pictures of the trails. I think one really neat thing about this trip is the variety of terrain. And so I tried to choose pictures that showed 3 different views of different types of hiking. All right, so the activities, of course, on this trip are hiking and sketching. And so a few important things to know about the hiking. One thing that people wonder about with this trip is how they're going to feel with the altitude. So just wanted to assure everyone that that's something we really take into account when we plan trips. So I mentioned already that you'll fly into Denver and you'll have one night in Denver before you head up to the higher mountains. So Denver is about a mile in elevation. It's 5280, the Mile High City. So I know that's already quite high for some people. And the first night you'll just stay in a hotel. You know, we might go out to dinner as a group, depending on who's there. And then you'll just have some time to acclimatize. And then the next day we'll drive up to Grand Lake, about a 2-hour drive, maybe 2.5 hours. And we'll do a little hike that day. So that day is the 1.5 mile hike that's referenced here. So we start with a short hike with very minimal elevation gain, and then we kind of work our way up through the week. So a lot of the hikes on this trip are out and back. So instead of being a loop, you can head out and then turn back. And so there's the option to kind of go as far as we want, with the focus on this trip really being the art and having time to do that. So we want to make sure everyone has plenty of time for the hiking and sketching. And we do go up to 11,800 feet, but we don't hike up to that elevation. So on that day, you drive up and then you hike downwards on the trail. And Brenda and Claire, do you want to talk a little bit more about the hiking that we'll see, and then also talk more about what the art will look like?
Yeah, I can. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Brenda.
Well, I was going to say it's really great because we, as Melanie said, we go through a variety of different ecosystems and we get to see just different. There is a lot of pine beetle kill also in certain areas, so we'll learn a lot about the ecology of the area and how that affects wildlife. go up into the alpine and into aspen meadows and lots of lodgepole pine along streams and waterfalls and lakes. So lots of different kinds of places. And then we kind of say every day you have a chance to either hike more or sketch more. So if you want to kind of slow down a little even more and really, you know, several of our trails are out and back, as it says. So we have the opportunity to really stop and really smell the roses and sketch more than we would on other trips that we offer with AGC.
Mhm.
Yeah, Claire, any?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that because it's a level 2, you know, the mileage isn't so much and the elevation isn't so much. You know, again, we are working to acclimate everybody so everyone feels well. But if, you know, you're looking to get your miles in, a lot of the days we have up to 7 miles or so. It's definitely doable. It's really beautiful, enjoyable. Each day has a little bit different feel. You see different things, different wildlife. There's areas where you would see elk. There's days where, you know, there was a day that we saw moose. The one group saw shortly thereafter a calf being born. It was incredible. I think it was on the slide that we're looking at right ahead of me. I can't remember, but it might have been that day. So for those that really like to get their exercise, it's a great opportunity, and you can also stop and take pictures if you wanted to take pictures and make notes, and then you can work on things in the evening. It doesn't mean that you have to, you know, sit down for a long period of time, but some people will. So we like to emphasize too that it's also taking notes and being more observant about where you are, and it helps you to remember where you were and your experience that you've had. So it can just be doodles or words or things that, you know, you're just feeling like writing down. So I think the hiking, it just brings out the best in you there. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Oh, and it says it on here, but I'm just going to repeat it because it's worth repeating. Materials are provided. So any of the art materials that you might need for this trip, we'll have prepared and ready for you. All right. Little note on trip level. So Claire mentioned this, but it's a level 2. And if you go into the trip to register, you can read this again. So don't feel like you need to remember it. But our explanation for a level 2 for this trip says this trip's appropriate for any woman who exercises regularly at a moderate level, such as going for 45-minute brisk walks 3 to 5 days a week, and who either enjoys hiking or is new to hiking and wants to learn in a safe and fun environment. So I'd say this is a great trip for people who are new to hiking, and it's also a great trip for people who are new to art. Or trying to incorporate that into your trip. And it's also totally appropriate for people who hike all the time or are already feel like they're experienced artists. So really everybody is welcome on this trip. If you aren't sure about a level 2 trip, and that might be a stretch for you or something new for you, we also do have a trainer, Becky Rupp, at Trailblazer Wellness, and we can connect you with her to get a training plan that will have you ready to go by the time this trip goes.